What was your inspiration for A Mutiny in Time, the first book in the Infinity Ring series?
Well, it came from my love of history. I'm a big history dork, and I really wanted to explore sort of a what if this or what if that had not happened in history, and that was sort of the first spark of idea.
Was writing this challenging because you're not going to be the author of the second book?
Yes, actually, it was. I've met the other authors who will be working on Infinity Ring, and we've had a lot of fun brainstorming and throwing ideas back and forth. But it is a challenge when you have to rely on other authors to continue your story and make sure everything stays consistent and has the same style and things like that.
Your book is about time travel. What intrigues you about the concept of time travel?
Oh, time travel just sounds cool. I mean, if you could go back and just walk around the streets of, Abraham Lincoln's time, or go visit a castle when it was really running back in medieval times. It's just always been something I've sort of daydreamed about. So since I can't actually do it, writing about it is almost as much fun.
How did you pick your characters for this book?
Picking characters, it just, I usually spend a few days brainstorming, and generally I'll think of a character and I'll come up with one character trait. For example, Dak, who's the main, probably the main character in the story with his friend Sarah. I'll think of him and say, okay, what is his most obvious trait? And I'll think, okay, he's a history nerd who sort of has a smart aleck sense of humor. And then I'll just let my mind start filling in the blanks of, okay, what does he like to do? What kind of food does he eat? What makes him sad? What makes him happy? What makes him excited? And I just spend a few days brainstorming that way.
Do your characters resemble people you know?
There's never really a one-on-one comparison, but because I'm using my brain to come up with the characters, just naturally, people that I know, I take certain traits from people and incorporate them, a lot of times without even thinking about it. It just happens naturally.
Do you share any personality traits with your characters?
Yes. I said Dak, the main character, is a history dork, history nerd, and that's what I am too. And I also was, this will shock you, but slightly nerdy when I was growing up, okay? And Dak and Sarah are both sort of nerdy. So, when you're writing a character and it's from their point of view, but you're the author writing it, you really can't help but just have yourself naturally bleed into them. And so I think anytime you're reading a character that was written by me, you'll see bits and pieces of myself in it.
Do you ever have days when it is difficult to write? And if you do, what do you do?
Great question. A lot of people call it writer's block. Sometimes you can't just sit down same time every day and write. You really have to have your creativity, on full gear. So some days, and this will make you think my job's really, really hard. Some days when I'm having a hard time writing, I'll take a break and go see a movie. Or I'll spend a couple hours reading a book or watch a cool TV show or something. And that usually kind of loosens up my brain and gets my creative juices flowing again.
Do you have a favorite author?
My favorite author is definitely Stephen King.
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, ironically, is not by Stephen King, even though he's my favorite author. If I had to pick my favorite book of all time, it would be Ender's Game.
What is the most challenging part of your job?
My most challenging part is probably the revision process. I love storytelling, and I love brainstorming. I love ideas. I love developing characters, and I love writing the first draft of a book. It's just the creative process. But then comes the hard part, where you have to read it over and over and do edits and then your editor rips it apart and tells you everything that's wrong with it, and you have to fix those things. That part is a challenge for me. I have to really keep myself motivated to make sure it gets as good as it can possibly get.
Do you have any advice for kids who want to be published authors one day?
Yes, I do. Number one, you have to practice. For some reason, people think writing is just this gift. You're just born with it. You can either write or you can't write. But it's totally not true. You may have a natural gift for it, but you have to practice to get better, just like basketball or piano. So I strongly recommend at least once a week, more than once a week if possible, just sit down and write. Just practice. Write a short story, start working on a novel, whatever. And then the other is to try to start going to writers' conferences where you can meet agents and editors and that sort of thing.
Thank you so much for your time. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.